Joining me now is a chartered accountant and a financial analyst, Dayo Lomuagun. Dayo, it's good to have you join me in the studio.
It's always my pleasure.
Really. All right. Now, the preparation for the 2020 budget is on. A lot of comments we're hearing from Nigerians are that it is good that the preparation are starting on time so that the January to December cycle will be met. What do you take of this?
I think it's a good development, considering what we have had in the last 3 or 4 years, where we need to, the approval of the budget is not done until mid-year, and then you talk about implementation, then before you know it's the end of the year and nothing has been done. So I think commencing it early now is a good development, and interestingly enough, I hope APC is APC now, and there won't be issue of National Assembly not approving the budget into time. So you expect a speedy approval.
APC in 2015.
Yes, but you know the other story. So we expect that the approval will be done maybe by November, and latest by December, and we are good to go for the
One concern that people have, or experts are looking at it, you remember NNPC sometime in June came up with a report saying that oil the disruption of pipeline and vandalism increased by 77%. Now, if the projection for 2020 budget, they're pegging about 2.18 million barrels per day production. How do you see this? How realistic is it to meet that target?
I think clearly this may just be unrealistic. If you look at the history of what we have, the actual production in the last 2 years, 2018, I think we have about 1.8 trillion or so, million barrels.
It's been hovering between 1.5 and 2 million.
So
1.5.
if we have never hit 2 million, I mean, so to say, and with the rate of vandalization that you have reported and all of that, to still think you will be able to make 2.18 million barrels per day, I think it's just it's unrealistic.
All right. There's still the projection of raising about 7 trillion naira from revenues generally. I wonder how realistic that is too.
You see, again, I think if you look at the budget generally, the biggest concern to Nigerians, and to maybe that should be the biggest concern of the government currently, should be how do you show up your revenue? Now because year in, year out, we see that the revenue is going down, and every time you run to borrow, and this debt, they are not free. You got to pay the interest and all that. So the burden is getting huge upon us. If you look at this, the budget for this, the proposed for 2020, we'll be giving out about 25% of that budget as debt servicing. It doesn't make sense. And to still think that we will still be incurring more debt.
More debt.
This debt, they're not going to pay themselves. They're not going to waive it for you. So you got to pay at a point. So I'm saying the critical concern should be how to show up the revenue, how to expand the economy, to allow foreign direct investment to come in, to boost productivity, so that at the end of the day, you can generate money here and there. But this current trend, it's not different from what we have in the last 2 years, and I guarantee it will get better.
There is the talk about the budget performance for 2019, and a lot of people are saying that the budget just passed about a few months ago has not really performed. And if we're looking at the new budget, then it looks like because we're going towards the last quarter of the year, and a lot of concerns about the performance of the budget.
You see, clearly, in fairness to the government, we don't expect a magic. A budget that's run for 12 years, for 12 months, it was just being passed 5th or 6th month into the year. You can't expect a lot of magic. And now, before you know what is happening, people are running around how to prepare the next budget, which was what we're discussing for 2020. So the window for performance, for good performance, is not there, really. And that is the concern. And that's why I think it's even good that we're starting this now. Okay. So that by October, November, we're almost good with the budget, and we're good to go. So the implementation can be guaranteed. In this country, you don't talk about the implementation, usually below 50, 60, 70% mark. That is not acceptable in other parts of the world.
How important, in fact, let me ask this question, how important is it to have the January to December budget cycle? because there's been a talk and there's been commendation for government, but make us understand how important it is.
I think it's important we have a budget to run with. Budget is just estimates. I mean, it's an estimate of what you want to spend and what you want to get as your income. But critically, what is more important is how does this concern the masses on the street? Okay. How does it concern every Nigerian? So, in fact, even in the cycle of accountant and economist and financial expert, people hardly give any time about your budget this again, because it is not about putting figures together, reading out the figures together. We want to see the impact on Nigeria. And so if your budget is increasing every year we have trillion, and the common man on the street cannot see how this helps him. In fact, the government should say, if we divide this team by 180 million people, thereabout, it give me my own card. I mean, that is not reasonable, really. But just to tell you, the man on the street,
the mindset and what is
the impact. I mean, so for me, it's critical that we have a budget to work with. Because if you don't plan, you plan to fail already. So now your budget is a mere plan. This is what we want to do. This is how much it will cost. So this is where we spend the money. And so the implementation is another thing. And you see, again, you look at the components of the budget, whether it's the current capital, and you are asking yourself, even the trillion, how have we been implementing it? Are these figures real? And what does it come to at the end of the day? Those are the questions that is bothering the common man of the street. And I think which the government has the responsibility to answer at a point.
All right. Thank you very much, Dayo Olomuagun, for coming on the program.
So good.
Thank you. Right.
Well, joining me now is a chartered accountant and financial analyst, Dayo Olomuagun. Thank you for joining us on TVC Breakfast. Now, there has been divergent views to this proposition of the 2020 budget by the government, and some have said that it is not viable, and others feel that instead of 9.7, it should be about 12 trillion naira. For you, what are your views? How viable is this budget?
So I think I'll possibly agree with the people that think this is not viable, that it should be more expansionary, such that it should be in the range of 12 trillion or thereabout. Because clearly, you see, if you dissect the budget, the proposed budget, the portion that is going to recurrent expenditure, and just a little portion, just about 21% going to capital expenditure that will develop the infrastructures, that will boost production capacities, and that can turn the economy around. So if you just see that just 21% is going into that, compared to what we have in the previous year, that is about 32% or thereabout. So it looks like we are going down in the area of ensure that the economy is sure, the capacity to produce and all of that, the infrastructure in place. So meaning the future is not very bright for the coming year. And so that's why some people are thinking, it should be especially such that more money can be voted into things like work, into things like infrastructure development and all of that. But clearly we're not seeing that.
But the finance minister thinks otherwise, because according to her, the budget is predicated on key assumptions like oil production on 2.18 million barrels per day, a benchmark price of $55 per barrel, exchange rate of 305 naira per dollar, and a projected revenue of 7.6 trillion naira. And she believes that these are realistic projections.
How realistic? I'm not too sure. I mean, for example, you mentioned the projection in respect of the oil production, 2.18 million barrels per day. That is clearly not realistic. I don't know, however you look at it, because in the last 2 years, I'm not sure we are anywhere close to 2 million. So I don't know what magic, especially considering the fact that the American reported cases of vandalism that is growing.
Yeah,
and so how do you want to manage that? I mean, the agitation all over the place, especially in the Niger Delta now is going to. So how do you intend, where do you intend to get this oil from? And so for me, some of the assumptions, they are not realistic. And so if we're still looking about something trillion as revenue, for me, is that the best we can do in the country? We're talking about oil, we're talking about what are the other areas? I mean, the task is there, how much are we generating? And so when you hear in the past that, we have made this, Parastatal will say, this MDA will say, we have made this money, we have made that trillion, we have made that trillion, you ask yourself, where is that money going? So are these just fake figures or something? So but in any case,
Quickly, because we need to wrap up. Quickly.
Okay. The 7.6 trillion is not good enough, and the projection may not be fair enough. But I think what is important, the government should look inward and see how can we show up our revenue sources. How can we show up the revenue such that we can attend to some of these things? Because clearly, this one where you need to pay debt servicing taking about 25% of your budget. This is not sustainable.
Dio Lumo, thank you for your time on TVT Breakfast.
Joining me now in the studio is a chartered accountant and a financial analyst, Dio Lomuagun. Dio, it's good to have you join me right now. One major concern Nigerians often have year in, year out is the issue of budget performance. How would you rate the performance of the 2019 budget so far as we're moving ahead and from the signs that you are seeing? It's been the challenge about budgeting in Nigeria is majorly the implementation. And in fairness, the 2019 budget we didn't get approval until I think around May or thereabout. So clearly there's already a lag, and now we almost ended the top quarter. So I don't see so much of a margin that this current government can perform in terms of performance. So if they are able to do 50–60% at the end of the day, I think we should give kudos to them in the circumstance. But because clearly we have wasted so much time, and sometimes what we even call performance, you want to be sure those projects are grand. You want to be sure this money is just not your flick away at the end of the day. We want to be sure they are actual performance. Now, another issue is the whole budget pegged on oil production and so on. There has been a call for diversification so that we can talk about the issue of expectation from, from other revenue sources rather than just oil.
So it's a big challenge, and I think since I started growing up, I've been hearing about diversification, and you wonder why the willpower is not there on the part of government to diversify. I mean, clearly this oil thing is not sustainable. In some other clients, they're already talking about getting away from oil and doing another source of energy, and UST, everything. But clearly, and you look at the budget as you are straight, there's no fundamental, nothing there to tell you that anything will change in the coming years. So because clearly it's still more of consumption. Your recurrent is still a lot higher than the capital. Even your capital budget is even going down. And where there's no assurance that anything will change, that will support production, that will support the small and medium scale enterprises to begin to grow. Yeah. Those things are not there. So clearly the issue of diversification, agriculture thing, the agri thing, I would say, is more of a lip service. So for example, I wanted to buy pineapple the other day here, and somebody says double the price because it's from Cotonou. And you wonder even pineapple is coming from Cotonou. So even the agriculture, the agriculture we talk about is not.
All right.
We're not even there.
Well, we look forward to a greater year ahead as Nigeria tries to return the budget cycle from January to December. Maybe that could also help in changing things. Dio Lomuagun, thank you so much for coming on the program. Thank you.